We're just weeks away from the trigger law going into effect, criminalizing abortion in Idaho. Planned Parenthood filed 2 lawsuits, one against that trigger law and the other against the Texas-style fetal heartbeat bill that would make abortion illegal after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Tomorrow, Idaho Supreme Court is going to hear arguments from Planned Parenthood attorneys about why the new abortion laws are illegal, and they're also going to hear arguments from the state and legislative lawyers of why they are not. Interesting, the nuance here. Idaho lawmakers are going to have essentially 2 legal teams representing them tomorrow. Why? Because they can. Joe Paris spoke with legislative leaders about why they do want these private legal resources. He also takes a look at how the AG's office is going to work alongside another legal team.
Wednesday marks a major day in the battle over Idaho's new abortion laws. The Idaho Supreme Court will hear from Planned Parenthood and the state of Idaho, via the Attorney General's office, on why they believe the new law should or should not go into effect. The Idaho legislature is also a part of the lawsuit. They filed to intervene so that they can get their arguments into court.
Well, I think, the main thing is we felt like in a separation of powers issue that the legislature passes the law. We want to make sure that we are represented, and therefore we intervene.
Senate Pro Tem Republican Senator Chuck Winder says lawmakers joined the suit to argue that the legislature acted legally by passing the abortion laws and that they should be allowed to take effect. Lawmakers believed in intervening because they weren't named in the suit as a respondent and wanted to make sure they were represented.
It is up to the states to make their own laws, and as long as those laws are reasonable, they should be upheld. We're hoping that they'll remove their stay on the trigger law, and so they also are bringing the heartbeat bill into it as a recent case, so we're hopeful that they would remove any stays on that.
Private attorneys for the legislature will essentially work alongside the AG's office as they make arguments on Wednesday. Idaho lawmakers actually passed a law that allows the legislature to intervene in cases that challenge laws that they passed with their own counsel if they don't want to work with the AG or they believe there's a conflict of interest or a reason to hire outside counsel. Winder explains how the AG and private counsel are looking at this case.
There's a little different approach at how they've approached the case and their arguments that they've made, but I really think we have both the same goal, and that is to get this law in place, to get the stays removed, and to move forward based upon what the Supreme Court decision was, that it's really up to the states to establish what their abortion laws are going to be in each of the states.
Idahoans are asking if their tax dollars will go to both the AG's defense team and the private counsel of the legislature. The answer, yes.
One is being paid out of the executive side, and one's being paid out of the legislature side. So again, it's a balance of power issue that was provided for in the Constitution, and we felt that the legislature should have adequate representation to intervene and to be part of this process.
Senator Winder adds the private counsel the legislature hired can bring a different perspective to their side.
These are very specialized cases, and so we went out and tried to find the best attorneys we could to represent the people of Idaho on behalf of the legislature.
So what will the court hear arguments on tomorrow? 3 main questions. Should the court put both abortion laws in question on hold while the cases are pending? Should the 2 cases be consolidated into one? And should either or both of the cases be transferred down to the district court level for trial before being taken up by a high court? The first 2 will be heavily debated in court Wednesday. That third question, though, about venue seems to have agreements from all sides. Here's Winder's view.
The Supreme Court, I think, is the proper court of jurisdiction in this case. I don't think that it should be reprimanded to a district court. I think the Supreme Court needs to make a decision and move forward.
So how much will this cost Idahoans, having 2 legal teams take on Planned Parenthood's challenge to the laws? Well, we don't know the exact numbers. Still a lot of hours to log, but our partners at the Idaho Press and reporter Betsy Russell says that the 2 attorneys that are the private attorneys for the legislature, they are going to be charging the state at $375 an hour plus expenses. Now, the legislature does have a little more than $3 million in the bank as a part of their legal defense fund, so that will likely cover this set of cases. But Brian, there's a lot of cases out there. There's a lot of questions out there. There's also a third pending case that we could find out more info about tomorrow. The third third law that Idaho passed most recently that's also been challenged in court by Planned Parenthood. We're not sure that's going to get taken up tomorrow. From what we understand, it'll just be the first two laws that were passed in 2020 and 2021. We're going to dive into all of this tomorrow. At 10 a.m. tomorrow, the Idaho Supreme Court is going to hear an hour of arguments, 30 minutes from each side. We'll see how close we stay to the 30 minutes on each side, but we'll have a full recap here on the 208 tomorrow. We're going to be talking with some of the major players involved, but as we head into tomorrow, and I know this is probably interesting to viewers at home, there's a lot of unknowns still, but tomorrow at this time, 5 o'clock tomorrow, we'll have a pretty clear picture on where the state of Idaho could be going with the abortion laws.
Okay, so just while I have you here, and just Alex Duggan has done a very good job writing this up for KTVB.com, but just so we're clear, as you mentioned, there's two laws. 2020, the trigger law was passed. 2021, the Texas-style fetal heartbeat ban was passed that eliminated abortions after 6 weeks. Then there was the amendment passed last year that put in the fact that families could sue anybody who provided or helped provide an abortion to a woman. So we don't know about that one tomorrow, but we do know about the others two. And Senator Winder said that there are two stays in place on those first two laws, so they cannot be enforced until they figure that out, which could happen tomorrow. And then after that, we have this DOJ lawsuit that if the state Supreme Court says these are all good to go, let them go through, the DOJ could say, well, hold on one second. Just so I have that clear, is that right?
It could get sticky here if the state Supreme Court says one thing and the federal government comes in and they say another thing. Now, there is a supremacy clause where, in theory, the federal law is supposed to take, precedent. But we'll see. This is going to get very messy. The truth is that we're at an intersection of politics and legalese in terms of the federal case against the state. We'll have to wait and watch, though.
And the DOJ is saying, no, you couldn't. It's not that you can't ban abortion. You just can't say, well, you can't receive medical attention because somebody's health is in question. Not necessarily life. All right. Yeah, a lot of elements there. Thank you very much, Joe.